So here we are 6 weeks later, and I'm finally uploading. Well, really 7 weeks later when you guys see this. Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, welcome. Please consider subscribing, and if you are already a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. Today's video is going to be my birth story. So I have a little nugget down here, so if you hear little squirms or just anything at all, that's him. If you hear a lawnmower, it's because my neighbor feels the need to it's because my neighbor feels the need to mow his lawn every 5 minutes. So that's what that noise is. This video, like I said, is going to be my birth story. So this is basically what happened in the hospital. So if you watched our labor and delivery vlog, which I'll put a link or the card up here for you if you want to go back and watch it, the title of it said that things did not go the way that we expected. So during the labor and delivery, a lot of footage was not taken because a lot of stuff happened, so we kind of just didn't get to get a lot of stuff. And then we also couldn't record the actual delivery, which, come to find out, we probably could have, because one of the nurses, while I was pushing him out, was like, "Dad, do you have the camera? Are you recording?" And it was like, you could have said something before. This story is going to be something that maybe a lot of women have gone through. I don't know, but this is an experience that I did not expect that I was going to have. It was a scary experience for me. It was extremely traumatic, and I didn't think that I was gonna make it during some of the things that happened to me. So on August 23rd, we went in to get induced. There was no medical reason for why I wanted to get induced. I just was tired of being pregnant. I was 39 weeks pregnant, and the doctor just asked me, you know, we could do it if you want. And I was like, yeah, let's go for it. Let's just go ahead and do it. So on Sunday, August 23rd, we decided that we would come in and start a slow induction. So basically what they were gonna do was they were just going to put Cervidil like next to my cervix, which is like a little shoestring where they just put it next to your cervix and then let things happen. Sunday was like a chill day. We ordered some DoorDash, and the guy that was supposed to be bringing the DoorDash, we didn't get the DoorDash, and then we got Grubhub, so we did get that food. They told me, you know, at around 8 o'clock, take a Ambien so you can get some sleep, and then about 4 o'clock in the morning we'll take out the Cervidil and we'll start you on some Pitocin. And they told me that basically at that point I wouldn't be able to, like, you know, get up and take a shower and all that stuff. 8 o'clock came on Sunday night, and I took the Ambien. Me and Marcus, we were talking. Next thing I know, I was out, like knocked out. I was like, I've needed this Ambien my entire pregnancy. At about 1 o'clock in the morning, I ended up waking up because I felt like something was leaking. And so I called the nurse in, and we had a really good nurse that night. Like, she was amazing. That night nurse for my labor was the best. She came in and she was like, "It looks like your water broke." And she was like, you know, I'm not supposed to let you take a shower, but I'm gonna let you take a shower. So she let me take a shower. Praise God for her. I took my shower, and Marcus helped me get back into bed. I started to feel contractions because once my water broke, I kind of felt some then too, and they started to kind of, you know, get a little bit more intense as the night kind of went on. And so I finally decided, you know what, this is what I'm gonna do. I had this game plan in my head. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm going to get the epidural, and then I'll get the epidural before I get the Pitocin. The anesthesiologist came in. I don't recall what time it was. I know that it was before 8 o'clock in the morning. He came in and he did the epidural, no issues, everything was fine, and I went back to sleep. Next morning I got up, everything was fine still, wasn't feeling anything, still feeling really good. Some time had passed. I started to feel contractions. So they decided that they were gonna check me at that point, and I was 6 centimeters. So I had gotten to 6 centimeters and I started to feel contractions again. I was like, you know, can I either get like something to like stop me from feeling the contractions, like maybe give me some more medicine or something? I don't really know. But I called in the nurse, told her that I could feel contractions again, and so they called in the anesthesiologist. This time it was not the guy that came in to do my first epidural. It was a young lady that came in to do it. She was really nice, and you know, she really wanted to help me with my pain. Okay, so if this is a different angle, I apologize. My camera died and it probably will die again. So she came in and she switched out the epidural for me, and so my pain could, you know, go away. Felt some relief, but it really wasn't a lot. So I still could feel my contractions. And the thing about these contractions that I was feeling, I was only feeling them in one area. It was only like in the middle of my stomach, like dead center. Nowhere else, just in that center portion of my stomach. And as time went on, they got worse and worse and worse. So she came in again, and she tried to give me some more medicine, or she did give me some more medicine. That didn't work. I think the last time that she came in, she brought in another young lady with her. She brought in another anesthesiologist, and they decided that they wanted to redo my epidural that was done earlier in the morning. And so I agreed to it. They started the process of doing the second epidural. I was leaning on the nurse. Marcus was still in the room. He was kind of standing off to the side, I guess. I didn't really know where he was at this point because I was in pain and I had my eyes closed and I was leaning forward, so I couldn't really see where he was. She started the process putting the epidural in my back, and all of a sudden she said, go get another doctor. I'm not gonna say his name, but she said go get another doctor. And at that point I still don't know what's going on behind me, but Marcus knows what's going on behind me. So I have no clue what's happening. I don't know why she called this other doctor in. I'm just in pain at this point, and at this point I'm just like, I don't care what doctor is in here, I just don't want to be in pain anymore. But like I said, Marcus was behind me, so he knew what was actually happening. So this other doctor came in the room. He got really snippy with the young doctor, the young lady, the anesthesiologist that was doing my epidural. He got really snippy with her. I guess she must have looked at him and was like, what do I do? And he was just like, pull it out, just pull it out. And uh-oh, are you okay? Again, I'm still not really registering what is happening behind me. And then the doctor that came in turned to Marcus and spoke to him in a way that Marcus just did not like. And also Marcus saw what happened, and so he was pretty upset by the way the doctor was talking to him. He basically asked him to sit down, but he did it in a really condescending way. So it was just really like, for me, I was just like, I don't know what is going on, but in my mind I'm thinking, they got needles in my back, like let's not do this today. But in hindsight, now I understand. So basically what happened when the doctor came in, when she put in whatever they do to do an epidural, she either went too deep, or I don't really know, but blood started to spew out of my back. Marcus saw what was going on, and I didn't know what was happening. So the guy that came in, he redid the epidural, and I don't know what he gave me, but whatever he gave me, I've never been that numb in my life. And I know I said I wanted to get an epidural because I didn't want to feel anything. Bless you. Because I said I didn't want to feel anything, but I don't think I know for a fact that I never want to be that numb ever again. I literally couldn't even move my toes. They checked me again after I got that epidural. I think I was at like 8 centimeters. And the doctor actually came in and she had me push at 8 centimeters just to see what would happen. And when I did push, it pushed me to like a 9. And so they decided to just put me on my side. So they put me on my left side first. And the nurse basically had to turn me over because, like I said, I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't move. So the nurse had to turn me over on my left side and put my foot up on my leg up on the stirrup that was there. I just laid there and I kind of fell asleep a little bit. And I started to feel the epidural start to rise up in my chest area. I started to have to think about breathing. I had to think about it. I had to think about breathing in and breathing out. At the same time as me starting to feel numb in my chest area and I couldn't really breathe and I had to tell myself to breathe, I started to feel like my hands and my arms were getting numb. I asked the nurse, I said, hey, can I move over to the opposite side or something because I'm just not feeling good on this side anymore. And she said, yeah, let me check you first. And then if you're not dilated anymore, then we'll move you to your right side. So she turned me over, checked me, and I was at 10 centimeters. It's time to push. So we're just gonna go ahead and start pushing. So they got everything ready, turned on those lights in that room. We started pushing. They had to basically, you know, because I couldn't feel the contractions coming, they had to tell me when to push, and I couldn't even feel, I felt nothing. They told me to hold the back of my legs and bear down and push. I couldn't even feel my hands to hold the legs that I could not feel to push anything at all. I know I was doing something, but it wasn't enough to get him to come out. The epidural was just way too strong and it just wasn't working. I also found out the reason why I was having such intense pains right in the center and the epidural wasn't working there previously was because he was sunny side up. So he had his face turned up rather than down, and when you give birth to a baby, they need to be facing down to come out of the birth canal. So he was facing up, so that was why I was feeling all that intense pain right in that one area in on my stomach. And so the doctor actually turned him during one of my pushes, and I didn't know that until after the fact. And so nothing was happening. Marcus said he heard one of the doctors, because there was 2 doctors in the room. I don't know why the other doctors stayed, but it was like they were switching shifts, and so she decided to just stay anyways. But Marcus said he heard her say, you know, usually I would just go ahead and do a C-section, but let's just go ahead and turn off her epidural. So they turned off the epidural so that I could feel, because I couldn't feel anything. Sat me straight up so that he could kind of come down a little bit more. And at this point, I just remember crying because I just felt defeated. I was tired, and thank God for Marcus, because he encouraged me in that moment, and I really needed that. After they sat me up and turned off the epidural, I started to feel again, and I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's get this baby out. I'm tired. I'm ready to be done. So we started pushing again. This time contraction came, I could feel it, pushed. I think we did 3 cycles of pushing, because you know, with each contraction you can get like 3 good pushes in. So we did about 3 cycles of pushing, and baby boy was out, and I was like, praise God. Now in the process of me pushing him out, I started to notice that I had a pain on my left side of my stomach. After he came out, it was just like the adrenaline of him being out. I'm crying. I still had that pain, but I didn't think anything of it because, you know, I just gave birth. So I was just like, this is a part of what you feel after you have a baby. And, you know, the placenta hadn't come out yet, so I didn't think anything of it. He was okay, but they wanted to check his breathing. So they told me we're going to take him to the nursery so that we could monitor his breathing, and then he'll be right back when we're done. So they were like, Marcus, Daddy, you come with us to the nursery. Mom is going to be okay. So they did everything they had to do with me. They cleaned everything up, everybody left the room, and I was there alone. So I called my mom and my sister, and then I remember telling them like, y'all, I just don't feel right. I don't feel good. Something isn't right. And I hung up on the phone with them, and I looked around the room and realized like, oh God, like I really am in here by myself. The nurse was gone. Marcus was gone in the nursery with Caleb. And so I had to call the nurse back into the room. So when I called the nurse back in the room, I said, listen, something isn't right. My stomach still hurts. Like it hurts really bad. And so she took the ice pack off, took the pad off, took the ice pack off. And there was just a waterfall of blood that came behind it. And so she started to push down on my stomach, which essentially she was pushing down on my uterus. And I remember her calling in a team of nurses, and I remember she said her uterus is still 5 inches above her belly button, and she just continued to push and push and push on my stomach. And it was so painful. I was in there by myself, and I knew I was losing a lot of blood. And I know that Black women die in childbirth more than any other race. And so I was terrified. I was terrified to be in the position that I was in. The doctor came in, the doctor that delivered Caleb came in, and I remember them putting some shots in my thigh. I just remember screaming to the top of my lungs, and at one point I think I passed out from the pain and just probably just the shock of everything that was going on. There were nurses everywhere, like they swarmed the room, and it was the most terrifying thing I think that has ever happened to me in my life. And Marcus came back to the room, and he came back to the room probably thinking that everything was gonna be, you know, honky-dory. I'm coming back, everybody's happy, the baby's here, we're gonna like talk about it and all this. But he comes back to like this gory scene of me screaming, and there's just blood everywhere. And so that's what he came back to. And I remember hearing him say my name. He was just like, Blair, and I couldn't respond. I just was in shock, in pain, and I was just screaming. I'm sure the other ladies on that labor and delivery floor thought I was giving birth, and they probably got scared. I remember waking up, and I guess everything had calmed down at this point. They had to give me another catheter because they had already taken the one out from when I had my epidural. They had to give me another one. The thing I remember is waking up to a nurse trying to get Caleb on my boob so that he could nurse. And I couldn't keep my eyes open. Like literally, the nurse and Marcus had to get him to latch onto my boob because I couldn't keep my eyes open. I couldn't keep my head up because they had given me so much medicine. I guess pain medicine. I don't really know what they gave me while I was going through that whole situation. So this is going on. I'm falling asleep. I just remember my head started to hurt, and I was just like, it's probably hurting because I just went through a whole lot of stuff. I didn't think anything of it. The place where it was hurting, I honestly just didn't think anything of it. And I remember that night feeling like it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I just remember thinking, my head hurts. It's like I can't, when I sit up to try to feed him, it's really hard because my head hurts so bad I can barely keep my head, my eyes open. Like every time I would look down, it just felt like intense pain. So I just asked the nurse, I was like, hey, can I get some formula to supplement, because I want to breastfeed, but I can't do it right now. I literally cannot, because I'm in this pain that I'm having in my head is really bad. She didn't want to give it to me. She was like, well, you know, she just kind of was like acting as if she didn't want to give me the formula. I literally could not function for myself, let alone a baby. And at the same time, Marcus was feeling sick. And I think the adrenaline from the day was finally wearing off of him, and so he started to feel sick. He was like nauseous in the corner, so it was just like we were just spent. Next morning, a new nurse came in, and that new nurse busted the door wide open and was like, okay, Miss King, your baby's ready to eat. And I was just like, what is happening? So I realized that my head was still hurting. It was hurting, like it was like the bottom of the back of my head and my neck. And it was like, as time passed, it just got worse and worse. And at the moment, I didn't notice the trend that when I would lay down, it was fine, but when I would sit up is when it would hurt the most. I didn't notice that trend until later in the day. Doctor came in that actually delivered Caleb, and she told me that I basically hemorrhaged, and I lost a lot of blood. She told me that my hemoglobin levels went from 10 to 6.8 or 6.9, something like that. And she asked me if I would be okay with getting a blood transfusion, and I told her yes, I was fine with getting a blood transfusion. And I told her that my head was hurting, and she said, you know, after you get this blood, then you know your headache will probably more than likely go away. So I'm thinking, okay, cool, let's do this blood transfusion. I'll get the 2 bags of blood that they want to give me, and then I'll be fine. So we get moved from the delivery room to a recovery room. They started the bags of blood. Once they started the fluid and stuff, you know, I had to use the bathroom a lot, and so my nurse would help me go to the bathroom. And when I would go to the bathroom, again, I'm standing upright, I noticed that my head would hurt even more. It was like an intense pain, like an intense pain, and I could not look from side to side. I could not look down. When I stood up, it was absolutely terrible. And so I told her, I said, my head still hurts even after getting this blood. I'm not dizzy at all, my head hurts. And I remember crying to Marcus, and I was just like, my head hurts so bad. And she just seemed like she just was like kind of brushing me off a little bit. And so I remember also hearing her say, because I kept complaining about it, I remember her saying, oh, I really hope you don't have a spinal headache. And I was just like, a spinal headache? I don't know what that is or whatever. So what a spinal headache is basically where your that epidural space or something, I can't really remember how they described it. Basically, spinal fluid, whatever they did during my epidural, they did wrong. When I started to bleed out, or when that blood started to spew out, they also probably had some spinal fluid to come out. And what that did was it basically caused spinal fluid to go up my spine into my head, which was causing me to have spinal headaches. When she realized that I really seriously just could not function because my head was hurting really bad, she called someone to have an anesthesiologist come in the room to talk to me. Because she felt like I had a spinal headache. And so, because everything that I was saying, everything that I was describing was a spinal headache. When I laid down, I was fine. I could feel it, but it wasn't bad. But when I sat up, it was absolutely terrible. I could not function. So when I sat up to nurse my baby, I couldn't do it because I couldn't even look down to see how he was latching onto me. I couldn't do any of that. Now granted, I was pushing through it, but it was absolutely terrible. It was so painful. It was the worst pain, or it was pretty intense pain while I was doing it. So the anesthesiologist came in. It was the same young lady that did the epidural the previous day. And remember, she was the one that caused me to bleed. She was the one that poked too far and made me bleed, and probably had some spinal fluid come out along with it. So she told me I sound like I have a spinal headache. There are 2 options. I could go the conservative route, which is where I could just drink a lot of caffeine, give it some time, like days, like 10 days or something like that, and then the spinal headache would kind of take care of itself. So basically, or they could do a blood patch. And what a blood patch is basically like an epidural. And what they do is they basically take your blood and they do an epidural, and they put your blood into your spinal cavity, I'm guessing is what it's called, to basically patch where the spinal fluid is going up in your spine, which is causing you headaches. So in the moment, me and Marcus decided we didn't want to do that because I was tired of being poked and prodded. And we said we'll just drink a lot of Mountain Dew, and I'll just drink a lot of soda, and we'll just, you know, it'll be what it is. But as the day went on, I said to him, I'm not going to be able to function like this for another day or 2 or 10 days. So I texted my cousin and I asked her, because I remember her saying something about having to do something similar when she had one of her children, and she said it works. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do the blood patch. The next day they got me with the head anesthesiologist, and he did the blood patch for me. Immediate relief. It was absolutely amazing. And they were like, okay, you can go home. This was on Wednesday. I don't even think I've been keeping up with the days in this thing. So I was admitted on Sunday, and they were letting us discharge on Wednesday. So on Wednesday we were coming home, and my head started to hurt again when I got into the car. And I didn't want to say anything because I just was like, no, there's no way that this didn't work. Like, everybody's telling me it's immediate relief. But I got home, my head was still hurting. I laid down, took a nap, woke up, and my head was still hurting. And at this point, every time I would sit up, I could literally feel, for when I went from laying flat to sitting upright, I could literally feel the spinal fluid going from my head draining down, and it was so, it hurts really bad. So the next day we had to take Caleb to his doctor's appointment to go see the pediatrician, because he did have jaundice, so they wanted to check his levels. I remember being in the doctor's office and just pacing back and forth, and because my head hurt so bad, sitting down didn't work, riding in the car hurt like crazy. It was just awful. It was awful. I was crying because my head hurt so bad. Caleb was crying because he was hungry. I'm trying to breastfeed him, and it was just awful. I basically came back home. We came back. I called my cousin again, and she actually called labor and delivery for me. She called, and they were like, you know, she's probably gonna have to get a second blood patch, basically. So I had to go back to the hospital, and we had to do a second blood patch. But this time, it took a little bit more effort. They couldn't find a vein to get some blood out of because most of them were blown at this point. They finally did find one, and once they found it, we got it situated. And this time I felt that spinal fluid still a little bit when I would lay flat and sit back up, but I said, you know what, I'm gonna give it a couple days. Marcus was like, you still gotta heal, Blair, calm down, like, you know, it's gonna be okay. After all of that, you would think that all would be well with the world and I wouldn't have any more issues and I would be fine. But I started to notice that every time I would lay down, that it felt like I couldn't breathe. It felt like I had to do like a cough, like to kind of like catch my breath. And I kind of ignored it at first. And then by Sunday of that week, it became to the point where it wasn't when I was just laying down that I was short of breath. I was short of breath all the time. It scared me because we're also going through the COVID-19 virus, and I didn't know if I had fluid in my lungs just from all the fluid that they had given me over the week, or if I had contracted the virus. So I went to urgent care, got a CT scan done, and the CT scan showed that I had fluid in my lungs. And the doctor told me that it looks like it could be COVID, but he wasn't sure. So I had a test done, I had a COVID test done, and he told me to come back on Monday, the next day, so that he could do an x-ray to see if there was any improvement. He had given me some medicine to get rid of all the fluid that was in my body, because my feet were swollen, okay? Like, I had so much fluid in my legs and in my feet. It was terrible. So he gave me some fluid medicine and stuff, told me to come back to get an x-ray. So I came back the next day. My left lung looked better, but my right lung did not. He said it looked a lot like what people who have had the COVID virus, it looked a lot like what their lungs look like. And a lot of my lab work looked a lot like COVID. As you can imagine, I was terrified. I have a 7-year-old and a newborn, and I don't want this virus. I cannot have this virus. We did what we had to do with the kids to get them safe. To keep them safe until I got my test results back, because I didn't know if I had it or not. So those 2 days of waiting for those test results to come back were the most excruciating days of my life. I think I cried more in those 2 days than any other days of all of this stuff going on. Maybe not, I don't know, but it felt like it. I called the number that they gave me, and the results came back negative, that I did not have COVID-19. So basically I just had fluid on my lungs from all of the fluids that were pumped in me from Sunday to Friday. And I was just laying down that whole time because I could not sit up because I had a spinal headache. I know I don't look anything like how I look in this video right now, but I really missed an important piece to this story. When the head doctor came in to talk to me about doing my blood patch, he mentioned that the male anesthesiologist that came in to do my second epidural after the young lady called him in, he didn't put in my report that blood came out of my back when they were doing the epidural. And in the moment, I really wasn't paying attention to him actually saying that, but Marcus caught it. And from that point, Marcus started to record the conversation, because it was almost like they were trying to cover it up that this had happened. And when the young lady came in to talk to me about the 2 options that I had for spinal headaches, looking at her as she was talking to me and just thinking about looking at her in that moment, she seemed like she felt bad. I know it wasn't on purpose, but you know, don't lie about it, or don't make it seem like it didn't happen, as if, because there's only one reason why I would be having a spinal headache, and that would be if spinal fluid leaked out during the process of getting the epidural. And they didn't even put it into the report. So it was almost like, what are you guys doing? But yeah, so I forgot to mention that in the video. I also wanted to say at the end of the video, because children started getting antsy. My experience is not going to be everyone's experience. So if you are a mom who is, or expecting mom who's about to have your little bundle of joy, do not let this story scare you. What I went through is crazy and nothing that I would wish on my worst enemy. But everybody's experience is different. Even this being my second child, this experience was different from the experience with Jayla. My experience with Jayla was easy breezy, and I had an epidural with her. So I can't say that it was the epidural's fault either, even though when I got the epidural, I got a spinal headache this time. Don't let this discourage you. You're gonna do great. And yeah, so that is my story. Again, if you enjoyed this story, please consider subscribing so you guys can keep up with us. And we'll see you in our next video.